Thanks for coming out. Beautiful Montana morning. And dark out there, though, I thought. Well, it's good to see everybody. Thanks for coming. We got a great program lined up this morning. We got a lot going on. We could probably take a minute or so and just see if there's anything hot off the presses that somebody would like to share, or any introductions, or anybody here for the first time? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good
Who's
morning.
that? Hi.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Berna. I just started a new position.
You gotta get to the mic. Oh. Sure. Get that diaphragm going, yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm just as straight with the mic as everybody else, so, but I'm holding it right now. So I'm Caitlin Berna, just started at KTVH, KXLH broadcast, and I've lived in Helena 20 plus years, raised a daughter here. She's at Oregon State University as an engineering student. Go Beavs. So that's everything else I need to say about myself. Glad to be here.
All right, Kate. Well, thank you and welcome. Let's welcome her, please. Well, who's that person next to you that did the introduction or that singled you out? I'm trying to, I can't, the eyes go, you know.
I haven't been here for a couple weeks, but I'm fairly fortunate. I also work at KTVH. I'm the local sales manager.
Oh,
Yeah. Hello again, everybody.
all right. Ellie, is that right?
Kelly.
Kelly, all right. Well, welcome to you both. Thank you. Yeah, Tim Joyce, I've missed you the last few weeks there, buddy.
We've been busy, clearly. I just wanted to come and give folks a quick update about funding at Helena Food Share. There's been some cuts, federal cuts, but I just want to talk through that really quickly for folks. And I have notes here so I get all my numbers correct. So there was some federal funding cut to the Emergency Food Assistance Program. There's a chunk of that that's called the CCC funding. Actually, there's a great story on KTVH from a couple nights ago with the Montana Food Bank Network. So what that amounts to for Helena Food Share is about 60,000 pounds of food over the course of, this was a number from last year. To give you an idea of what that means, that's about 2.5 semis full of food, which is a lot. It's definitely a lot of food. It amounts to about $130,000. There's certainly other organizations when it comes to federal funding that their total percentage of their, operating costs are much higher. But it's not insignificant for us. But the one thing that I'd like to make sure we talk about here is that 62% of the food that we get at Helena Food Share is donated by you folks sitting here in the room. Every day we go to the grocery stores and rescue food, so that there's still food coming in. We've had some calls from folks wondering if Helena Food Share is closing. Not the case, not even close to the case. We are here because you have decided Helena Food Share is important, and making sure people are fed is important. And ultimately, I think that's something we have to remember here, is that these cuts are affecting humans. There's people in our community who need assistance, and we are here to make sure that continues. And with your help, we are able to continue feeding folks in our community. So I just wanted to give everyone a quick little heads up there. There's in that MFBN story, who knows what's coming next cut-wise, and don't want to be, chicken little about this, but we're here. We're gonna make sure everyone has the food they need, and that is definitely because of your support.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. That 62% is that bodes well for the future, I think. Yes, ma'am. Is that Mary? Hey.
Back from Ireland. Back from 3 weeks in Ireland for my 40th wedding anniversary. Hey, I just wanted to piggyback on what Tim said earlier. There's a study that has recently been commissioned and released that was conducted by Headwaters Economics, and I will send it to Haley to distribute to the group. But to look at what is the impact of federal funding cuts in Montana, and what does that look like in terms of loss of revenue and jobs for people in our state and services provided. I'll just give you a couple quick headlines. Federal funding in Montana contributes $14.1 billion with a B to state and local governments, utilities, businesses, schools, etc. Federal grants account for 43% of our state's annual revenue. And while many of us recognize the impact of huge tax burdens that we all are paying, there's actually a significant return. So for every dollar that Montanans pay in taxes, $1.40 comes back to our state from the federal government. So I have no desire to express my opinion relative to any of that other than the data that's been presented and prepared by Headwaters Economics and the impact that that will have on our state. And so we'll get that to Haley to distribute to the group. And if anyone wants more information, I'm sure someone from the Montana Nonprofit Association, which actually coordinated this study, a group of funders came together prompting it, and Headwaters Economics conducted it. So it's really interesting information.
That'd be great, Mary. Thank you. 2 little words. Special session. I think we're headed for one. But if it's okay, let's bring on the Carroll College Drama Department. And Kim Shire is the teacher, or professor, and these are some of her pirates.
Hello, I know we were here like 6 weeks ago to present Calamity Jane play. Today we're here to present our annual children's play. It's written by Australian playwright Finnegan Crockmeyer called Suzette, Who Sat to Sea. It's a 42-minute production, and it's great for kids of all ages. I think it's very entertaining for adults too, and so far our preview audiences have agreed. So if you'd like to come see something short and engaging with really lovely alliteration, like Suzette, Who Sat to Sea, pop on over to Carroll College on a Friday or Saturday night this coming weekend, and next weekend at 7:30, or on a Sunday at 2:30. Some of us like matinees better than the night shows. So. I'm going to let them present about 4 minutes of the play for you. We're popping in about the middle of the play, and the crew of women on a boat have been in all kinds of trouble, including running into a sea monster who ate half their boat. And now they see another sea monster that looks suspiciously like the first.
Suzette lies content, staring down at the water that's reflective as a perfect mirror, so that another identical boat is reflected in the water. Another young girl stares up at her with the face of Suzette and the sweet voice Lucille. She thinks of everyone who is missing a hymn, and she makes up a hymn. The waves will wave us now, hello, and oceans will expand. We all have lost the way to go, we all have lost the land. We miss the men miss us, but one thing we possess. What all have on this boat is us, no more and never less. For each is a crew member led to sea by young Suzette. And we they shall remember, or we they shall forget. Suddenly, water begins to pull in from the hole, but no! How can things get any worse? What? The bone holder? Then how did it find us? It's as big as the bone holder, but it's surely not the bone holder. This fish doesn't have murderous eyes, or spiky teeth that sit on other teeth, or... Hello? Does your belly, by any chance, hold bones? What? All the normal ones, I think. I've got a rib cage, and there's a spine too. Then some other miscellaneous skeleton bits in there, but I can't tell you the names of those. Sorry. Not much good with that stuff. What are you doing out here? Searching for half a village, but with zero luck. I know how you feel. You've lost a village too? No, just a friend. We're the last of our species. And me without him, or he without me, is hopeless. It means we can't make any more of us. So I'll swim on my
chance happen to know the contents of its belly?
Not sure, really. It's a while since I saw him, and that was from the outside. But I guess... Munched up sailors! And it's a boat. He's always been quite into eating those. Much like the way yours looks now, actually. That's the kind of thing he'd do.
We know where the bone holder is.
Bit dramatic. His name's Lionel.
He's straight back along that rope, and I thought the third solution, one that helps us both. You who is missing a fish, and we who are missing a village. If we tie the back of our boat to the back of you, then you can pull us home before we drown.
And she does. She loops the rope around her fin, and off we fly.
Again, my name is Kim Shire, and I am the theater professor. I'm finishing up my 10th year at Carroll.
Hi, my name is Ashlyn Grasnick. I'm currently a junior at Capitol High School. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Rachel Hardy. I am a junior at Carroll College studying anthrozoology and theater.
Hi, I'm Lena Newhouse, and I am a senior at St. Andrew Catholic School.
Hi, I'm Sophia Lampkin. I'm a freshman at Carroll, and I'm double majoring in anthrozoology and theater.
Hello, my name is Al Gummers, and I am a senior theater major at Carroll College.
Hi, my name is Katie Melton, and I am a double major in English writing and theater, and I am a sophomore at Carroll College.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you guys spread the word for us that it's going to be a fun little show. It's hard to sell a show with a name that no one's heard before. So, Suzette, who's set to see.
Very good. Thank you, Kim. Let's challenge you, young ladies. Very, very tough. Very cool. They're putting this on for some of the grade school kids.
Yeah,
today, right?
in 2 hours, yeah.
2 hours. Today in costume. Very good. Well, what a nice warm-up. All right. Thanks very, very much. Sandy. Moving right along, Valerie Hellerman is with us. And I think she needs no introduction. I hope everybody remembers and knows Valerie by now. And Valerie, my understanding is we welcomed a family from Afghanistan to town recently. And yeah, whatever you want to do. Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you.
Nice to see you. Okay. Good morning, and thank you for having me again. Is it on? Hello? There you go. Okay, thank you, and thank you for having me again. Good morning. I'm here to tell you about a refugee resettlement program. On January 21st, the refugee resettlement program all through the United States was shut down. No funding, no refugees coming. We had 2 families in line to bring here to Helena within 2 weeks, and that's not going to happen. So that was very sad for us. However, we did connect with a group called No One Left Behind. They're a veterans group, and they worked with Afghans in Afghanistan theater, and they were SIVs, Special Immigration Visa holders. Now, they were guaranteed protection by the U.S., and there's over 20,000 of them that are still not able to come into our country. I connected with a gentleman from No One Left Behind who I had met on the border of Ukraine and Romania at the beginning of the Ukraine war. He was there extricating people who were behind Russian lines, and we exchanged business cards and we got back in touch. And so we have, in the last 2 weeks, brought 2 families here who are SIV holders, and tomorrow the 3rd family arrives. So I have a little video from General Petraeus. Is that?
Asia? I don't think she's paying attention.
Okay. Asia, do you have that video? Oh, maybe not. Okay. Well, if you go online, nooneleft.org, there's a great video of General Petraeus talking about how valuable these Afghans were in helping the U.S. government and the U.S. military in Afghanistan. And General Petraeus talks about how they could not have done what they were able to do without them. Now, the one family that arrived, the first family arrived, we found out on Friday about the need for SIV visa holders to come in because there's an imminent travel ban, and Afghanistan is on the top of this travel ban. So once that travel ban goes into effect, even SIV will not be able to enter the country, which, you know, they've been promised protection. We connected with No One Left Behind on Friday, and our first family arrived on Monday. It was pretty a quick turnaround. The second family arrived last Friday, and now this Friday we have one more family. And they are so grateful to be able to be here because once that travel ban goes into effect, they will be expatriated back to Afghanistan, and it's a death sentence to many of them who work for the U.S. So I'm just updating you on that. We have these two great families and one on the way. Since they arrived, their people who worked with them in the military have contacted me to see how they are. And it just shows how much they were appreciated and loved by our government and our soldiers who worked with them. So they'll be around our community, and I want to thank you all because Helena has again risen to help. We got furniture moved and donations of all kinds of things really quickly, and we so appreciate Helena's welcoming. Thank you.
Wow.
How can people financially support the work you're doing, Valerie?
Okay. Thank you. Donations to Hands on Global Heart, HARRT, which is the Helena Area Refugee Resettlement Team, will be appreciated. You can go onto our Hands on Global website and look up Heart Donate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Valerie. Thanks for everything you're doing and have done. Tempted to editorialize, but I'll just leave. I won't. But let's keep our ears and eyes open and help Valerie and these families out when we can, as best we can. But thanks again, Valerie. What a world. Huh? Well, our next two speakers might need a little bit of introduction, so let me do that briefly, and then we'll kind of turn to these two gentlemen who joined us. Closest to me is Todd Harwell, who's a physician who has worked in public health for over 35 years. Most recently, he was the administrator of the Public Health and Safety Division at the state of Montana, DPHHS. And he and his family moved to Helena in 1997. And I've seen him around from time to time, and he's been a great voice and a great advocate for public health. Incidentally, he grew up in Akron, Ohio, and he's heartbroken by the Cleveland Indians many times, much as I have been heartbroken by the Chicago White Sox, not to mention the Cubs. So welcome, Dr. Harwell. Good to see you again. And then next to him, in a nice red shirt for the morning, is Dr. Greg Holzman. And he came to Montana via Michigan to become the state medical officer at the Department of Public Health and Human Services in 2021. Well, I'm sorry, in 2021 he decided to step down from that position, and he started his work as a medical consultant. And Greg has worked in medical and residency education, clinical care, research, and public health for quite some time. He's, I've had the opportunity to see Dr. Holzman appearing before legislative committees, and he's very poised, very articulate, and makes a compelling case for public health. So he's been a great leader at both state and federal levels, and he's board certified in family medicine and preventive medicine. So welcome both these gentlemen. Please join me in welcoming them. Let's give them a hand. Dr. Holzman. So really, thank you, Greg.
All right, thank you. So thanks for inviting us here. And we were first called to ask about talking about the pandemic 5 years later. And I think that caused too much stress for both of us, Todd and I, to talk about. So we said, can we talk a little bit more about community and how community health, or how working of the community together has made such a significant difference on our overall health. And that's what we want to get at. Of course, we will focus a little bit about the pandemic, and that's kind of why we started with with our first slide. I don't know if that's up there. Okay. But basically, as said in other ways, pandemics happen. You know, epidemics happen, outbreaks happen. They've happened throughout history. I think there's many that we've learned about in schools that have been huge pandemics, such as the Black Death that is estimated to kill over 25 million people in the 14th century. We've had smallpox epidemics. We've had, and smallpox, and luckily we haven't seen that, but about 3 in every 10 people that got it would die. We've had tons of outbreaks from cholera, things that came out of the blue that we never even heard of before, and then started to have massive effects in Europe and then here in the United States. We all know about the 1819 flu pandemic. We know things that are more recent, like the HIV/AIDS pandemic, or SARS the first time, and COVID this time. So, and those are pandemics, meaning they're hitting all of our continents. We sometimes don't count Antarctica, but the rest of the continents. And that's not even getting at the number of epidemics and outbreaks and all those things that have happened and continue to happen really daily. As you know, just listening in the news today, we have a measles outbreak going on. We have pertussis, whooping cough is going on. They just announced, I think it was South Florida, I don't know if I have the right state, but Louisiana, 2 children died from pertussis. These vaccine preventable diseases are having their reoccurrence. So we've learned a lot as we came along. We've learned from each of these things. We've made mistakes, no doubt about it. But using the scientific method, we continue to advance forward. I mean, there was things that were learned in the Black Plague that made a difference just in the idea of, even though they didn't know what the organism was, they didn't even know about organisms, they knew that if you took people that were exposed, had a high exposure to somebody who was infected, and moved them away from the rest of the folks, there's a chance to decrease the spread. Quarantine comes from an Italian word, which means 40, and I'm not going to say the Italian word because I would not say it correctly, but it's meant that when ships came into the port, they were supposed to spend 40 days in the port before those people were allowed off the ship to try to prevent disease from coming into these communities. So we learned things, like I said, not always right. I think we've all seen the bird with the big beak that doctors wore during the Black Plague to protect them. It probably didn't do much, but that's the process as we go forward. And for each of these events that happen, there's a lot that we can stop before you ever see it. I sometimes talk about public health like being that virus protection in the back of your computer. You usually pay no attention to it because it's working and knocking off things before it ever happens. But a few will get through, and some can be a major problem. And public health is working most of the time on the background, but also for all these other events that are coming through. So, and I think that's the thing we need to understand about these pandemics or epidemics or even outbreaks. They stink. Nobody likes them. It's not like we have a choice. They have an effect on our community. But I think with the advances that we have and the abilities that we have, that even for those that break through, we have the ability, we have the knowledge. The question is, do we have the will to minimize the effects that this has on both morbidity and mortality, and even financially. I mean, if you look at what the global pandemic did, it hit us hard, but it hit the world hard. This was from a 2001 report, but the global economic growth decreased by 3.2%, trade decreased by 5.3%, 75 million more people entered poverty, and 80 million more people were undernourished than from the pre-pandemic. So this has had a significant effect. And whenever these events do happen, they do affect different areas and different communities differently. Oftentimes, those who are poorer or marginalized takes the brunt of things. But it can go and affect all those that go across. And that's why we try to work on things quickly. There's some things that happened in the last pandemic that are just absolutely amazing when you think about it. The way that the global scientists worked across the world, communicating together and sharing information, that we could put the genomics of that virus together to start to build a vaccine so quickly is amazing. That's one thing that scares me about this isolationism that we're all seeming to get into, is viruses and these types of things don't work in isolation, and we need that communication. The other thing that's amazing is that we had a vaccine, took something that was already in progress and was able to adapt it and change it and have it within arms within 12 months. That hasn't happened before. But I think the other thing that's been very eye-opening for both Todd and I, who've done some historical work, we did a paper on the pandemic of 1918-1919 in Montana in 2018, who knew what we were getting into. And we did one on the polio. But was not everybody was happy. As like I said, I wasn't happy as either. But yet as a country, we look at things and we know we could have done better. And part of it was we didn't respond together as a country or as a community. There were some people that were very upset at the virus, as was I, but they really came at the messenger. And the pitchforks definitely did come out and towards our public health department, and it really caused challenges for us to have a united working process of putting things into place. There needs to be conversation. There's going to be different viewpoints, and we need to bring those in and then come to a conclusion and move forward. But with everybody going in different directions, it's really doesn't work very well. It can kind of lead to chaos. And everyone for themselves mentality will end up, there's no doubt about it, in more suffering, in more death, and actually in more financial long-term problems. If you look at some of the other countries and how they rebounded financially compared to the United States, you can see how the uniformity and the more coordination, nobody was perfect, but the more coordination and unity had made a difference. And it's important to kind of think about this. This was actually a slide Whether you like him or dislike him, I happen to think very highly of him, Dr. Anthony Fauci. When he became the director, he drew a map, and this is the map behind it, a world presentation for congressional hearing that showed a single notable emerging infectious disease. And that was HIV. And then since continued to update it, the map, to show all the new emerging diseases. We have a journal, a medical journal out there that is just called that, Emerging Infectious Diseases. The number of outbreaks and epidemics have increased substantially since the 1940s and continue to rise. We can talk about that in question and answer of why that might be, but we have started to see things that we haven't seen before. We've seen reoccurrences of things that we've known before with changes in weather. We've seen with the easy air flights to any place, a disease can start in one place and be in another in no time. We saw that quickly with the first SARS and even with the second SARS. Zika, things that we might have not even known had been around and kind of hanging out in one area, decided to move along, and as we all saw what was happening with the HIV epidemic, and I could go on and on and on. But the point that I really wanted to focus on is that this myth of individualism in public health we've got to get rid of. The idea that only genetics or health and my own strong will has something to do, it does have something to do, but has all to do with my own health, is very short-sighted. And I'm not just talking about infectious disease. Public health is not specifically, and when I talk about public health, I use that term loosely because it's not really that I care about talking about the institution of public health. But what I'm talking about is working together, communities working together overall for the health and safety of everyone in that community. This has led to great results. Public health, and this is one of the challenges that happened in the United States, is we didn't have a federal response because public health in the United States was never built on federal. It started locally, and it has been locally. And for most times, that's where most of the work needs and has to come. But when it starts to be over states, over countries, then we need to start to work together and be coordinated. And public health came from concerned citizens coming together, from business people to academics to sanitarians to start to say, you know what, Mr. Smith, you throwing your waste in the river right here is not very fair to Mr. Miller, who's having this all come into their well water. We need something to talk about how we as a society are going to work together to prevent the overall problems of health. So when you start to look at evidence-based public health, there's a lot of people that put things out about prevention that have no backing on it, but evidence public health is very cost-effective. I didn't say cost savings, although there are aspects of it, but it used to drive me nuts going in front of the legislature. And they wanted to know how much this program was going to save the state this much money down the line. No one as a physician, no one is asking me as a physician how much money the cardiac transplant is going to save this community, or how much doing a cardiac bypass is going to save the community. It's still important. We want to do that because we do these programs, we do that to save lives and let people live a longer and healthier life. Well, public health, for the pennies on the dollar that you put in, have huge amount of effects of adjusted quality life years, extra years of life that people live with less suffering. So with that, I just wanted to give a quick example. In one perspective, and this is going to be slide by slide, I wanted to tell you this picture right there, that's my grandma. She was born in 1890, and I'm always, I talk to her, and obviously not now, but I talked to her when I was a kid, and I think about all the things that changed during her lifetime. I mean, she couldn't vote until she was 30 years old. She, flew in an airplane, the television, the microwave. She even had a computer before she passed away. This next picture is my grandparents on the other side, my grandma and grandpa. My grandfather was born in 1905 and my grandmother in 1908. And look again. If you look at them and what their average lifespan would have been the day they were born, was around 47 years of age. All of them lived into their late 80s and 90s. And a lot of that has to do with public health. I just showed this picture because this is my grandma, the same one that was in the first picture. I think she's 88 here. And my new grandpa, she's getting married again, is 90 years old. And they had a great honeymoon in Hawaii. And it was in those days where first class was kind of really special, and the captain heard that they were just getting married, so he moved them up to first class, and I think that's what I heard most about their trip. So it's amazing to think what they, next one, all the things they went through, and all the things that have changed medically too. I mean, in the 1900s, we didn't have antibiotics. Antibiotics came along first, the sulfa drugs in the 20s, and penicillin really in the 40s. Insulin, diabetes was a death sentence before the 1920s. Transplant, so we can actually take something out of one person and put it in another, and it works. All these things that have made such a huge difference in the medical community. Even Botox, if I'm going to live this long, I can look good. So it's kind of amazing, but yet, and that's where a lot of the tension is. But when you look at what are some of the biggest differences that have happened, that have made the difference between short-term, these life from 47 and increasing it, about 25 years of the extra 30 years is due to public health. It's because of vaccines. Go into any graveyard earlier in last century and look at how many kids died before the age of 5 from diseases that are completely preventable now. Look at things that you don't even think about, but things that we've done to make the healthy choice the easy choice. We knew, it was in 1987 that we figured out about folate and the increased risk of neural tube defects in newborns. And that some women's folate levels were not high enough and increased the risk for a newborn to be born that way. So foods were fortified. If you eat certain foods, you're getting your folate. I have never, I shouldn't say never, but very rarely seen a goiter in the United States. Our salt is ionized. We put iron in that. There's so many things that have changed just like that. Even things in thinking about the car you drove in 1950 versus the cars you drive now, and the difference in safety aspects that are on there that would happen if you were to get into a car accident. Lots of things have changed, and all of those things have had an effect. And I'm going to hand it over to Todd to give a little bit more.
Thanks, Greg. I just want to give a thank you. I think, Jim, I got an upgrade in my job description. I moved up to being a physician, but I'm not a physician. I only play one on TV, okay? I appreciate it. No, that's good. That's good. No, I just want to add a little bit onto what Greg was saying. And one thing was, Greg mentioned, we've had a chance over our time at the Public Health and Human Service Department to do some history projects and go back and kind of look at kind of achievements of public health. And I'll share a few of these. Greg hit on a lot of them already. But one was just going back, we did look at the Spanish influenza pandemic back in 1918, 1919, and its impact on Montana overall. But going through doing that project, we had the opportunity to go through death records from the early 1900s, and there was many things that caught my eye and kind of put things in perspective of where we've gotten because of public health and healthcare. But one of the big ones was I think it was an achievement for families in the 1900s if their kids survived past the age of 5 because of infectious disease. And I was blown away about how many young children and infants died in Montana from vaccine-preventable diseases and antibiotic diseases early in the 1900s. And then the other thing that was spectacular that it didn't really click with me until I was going through those death records of just injuries and violent deaths for people, occupational and otherwise, back in that time. But just, if you look at this slide, it really highlights some of the big achievements of public health. Greg mentioned vaccinations have been a huge one to address infectious diseases, and then the discovery of antibiotics in the 1920s through the 1940s. Other obvious ones I know will come to you. I think the Surgeon General back in the 1960s published a report about the harm related to tobacco products. And since that time, the United States and Montana has done significant work to address preventing kids from initiating use of nicotine products and also helping people quit and not start using those products. But that's led to reductions in heart disease, stroke, many other risk factors. All the work done to improve and try to make motor vehicle tracker safety and driving safer through seat belts, all the safety measures we have now have significantly improved our life and our life expectancy. And then the last one, just because Greg mentioned it, but it's like Back to the Future. There's a pretty significant outbreak of measles in Texas and the surrounding states. If you go back to the 1940s, and if you compare it to now, we have 9,000 fewer cases of measles here in the United States compared to back in the 1940s. And a lot of people, I hear sometimes about, measles, no big deal. It's better if you just get it and live through it. It doesn't. I think people forget the serious complications associated with it, and I think so far down in Texas there's been one death or two deaths, multiple kids hospitalized with serious complications. So we made a lot of progress. We forgot some things, I think, along the way. And then I think the other thing too I want to share is like Greg mentioned, new diseases like COVID and those things that we have to be prepared for. But the other big ones are, again, old diseases that make a reoccurrence because I think our safety net, our safety guard isn't up. Maybe many of you aren't aware, but Montana in the United States is experiencing really significant resurgence of syphilis, nothing like we've seen since the 1950s. Really the measures to address it are the same old measures that were used back in the 1940s and 50s. But I think in some ways, we've dropped our guard in terms of being prepared for old things coming back again. And next slide. And just a couple other comments. Greg mentioned, and this is just a figure on the life expectancy for people in the United States. And Greg mentioned this, but I just want to highlight again, if you went back to the 1900s, like with Greg's family, the average life expectancy was 47 years of age. If you go to 1996, which is shown here, there's a significant, over 25 years of improvement in life expectancy, which is outstanding. A large portion of that is due to the public health measures, safe water, vaccinations, those kind of things. But the one thing too I wanted to acknowledge is, if you come up, if you come up to today, to 2025, over the last 5 years, we've had a decline in life expectancy for multiple reasons. Before COVID, a big driver of it was behavioral health, mental health, suicide, substance use disorder, opiate epidemic, and then COVID just added on to it. So we've actually dropped in our life expectancy here in the United States. And then the last thing I just want to share on this was life expectancy in Montana and the United States isn't equal based on your race ethnicity. And it's pretty alarming if you look at this, it mostly represents non-Hispanic Caucasian folks, their average life expectancy. If you look at Montana for American Indians, their life expectancy is significantly lower, like 15 years lower than their compatriot of white Montana. So it's not equal across the entire population. So more work to be done. And then last thing I just want to plug was either one of these, it hits the point. Public health and healthcare are critically important if you want to have a healthy population for a healthy economy. You got to have healthy people to be able to go to work, do their jobs. and live a fulfilling life. And it's, I think often that tie between the economy, life satisfaction, and health and public health get lost along the way. So I'll stop there and pass it back to Greg.
Okay, I think we're probably running low on time, so I did that quote that was just there. It's on my business card because it's so much of what I believe. When health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself, art cannot become manifest, strength cannot fight, wealth becomes useless, and intelligence cannot be applied. And this is back for the physician to Alexander the Great. So I think we've known this for a while. It's just now let's try to implement it. It is part of, and I think the next slide is where it got at to. Think about it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's right there at the bottom.
Wow. Well, thank you both, Greg and Todd. Thanks for your research, your diligence, and thanks for coming this morning and sharing your findings with us. Let's give them a hand. If you ever I think we got time for some questions or comments. Greg mentioned pitchforks early on, and it kind of reminded me that Brenda Neiman is with us, who's our public health officer for Lewis and Clark County. And she endured the pitchforks and the slings and arrows of an angry public a lot 5 years ago. And I thought maybe we'd start with Brenda, Annie, if you don't mind. Run this mic back to her, and let's just see if she has a question for our guests or a comment to make. Brenda, thanks for coming this morning.
Brenda, this better be easy questions, okay?
I'm not sure that I had a question prepared for these two gentlemen who have blessed us with their wisdom this morning. I do appreciate that they are here, though, and continue to talk about public health, because I think that we do forget. I think the reason why measles is resurging is because we forgot. And those of us that have been vaccinated our entire adult life haven't seen the impacts that measles has on folks. Some of you in this audience have personally experienced measles. And those of you who have personally experienced measles are fewer than those of us that have not. And so that visceral experience of that really serious illness isn't among us anymore. So we have to remind our communities how important it is to understand public health and to support public health and to get vaccinated. I do want to take, because you gave me the microphone, I do want to take a moment and just speak briefly on measles, and that's just because that's what the hot topic is today. With the outbreak happening in the South, we are working hard on measles response in our community today. What that looks like is we are having very serious conversations with schools and child care facilities, because those are the two environments in which measles are the scariest. So child care facilities mainly because we have littles in that environment that are not even eligible to get their measles vaccine yet. Measles, the MMR, the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination is given at 1 year. And our child care facilities are full of babies that aren't yet vaccinated for MMR. And so it's a very, very high-risk environment for measles to spread and for our little babies to be exposed. Very, very important to understand that. And in schools as well, we have children in our school system that for medical reasons aren't able to get the vaccine. Our job in a community is to protect those that can't be vaccinated because there's a medical reason for them that they're not able to be. So the more we are all vaccinated, the more protected they are. And in schools, we have those kiddos that cannot get vaccinated, and it's our job as a community to be vaccinated and to protect them. So we're having those conversations, we're getting prepared, we're knocking on wood that we're not going to get a case. We haven't had a case of measles since the 1990s in Montana.
So let's keep it that way, but we do have work to do in our communities and conversations to have with parents with young children who are hesitant to vaccinate. So you gave me the microphone. I didn't have a question, but I should have a lot to say this morning.
Well, we appreciate it.
A quick follow-up if I may, and this is probably more for Brenda than for you guys, sorry. Are boosters recommended for those over 50?
And actually Dr. Holtzman can back me up, but at this time there is not a recommendation for a booster. However, you can get a titer. It's a blood draw and it shows how much immunity you have against measles. And if your immunity is very low, your physician may recommend. There are individuals 65 and older who have underlying health conditions and their physicians might consider, but it's not recommended at this time. Dr. Holtzman, would you add anything to that?
No, I think that's the major points. There's a difference if there was your grandchild was found to be positive, and how then you'd be talked to. There'd be some further discussion, I'm sure, but for the general public at this point in time, that's where we're at.
We are really encouraging our community members to know your vaccine status. So anybody that was born before 56 have been exposed, 57 have been exposed to measles and are considered immune. Anybody after that, though, should have at least one dose of the MMR. We're expecting that kiddos that are in school and in childcare have to. Those in childcare would have one dose, and then they would have their second dose as they're going into kindergarten. So, but there's, vaccines are kind of quirky. There was a time in the 60s where the vaccine was not found to be highly effective. So between like 62 and 68, depending on the version of vaccine you got, it may not have worked. And so we're encouraging those folks to get a titer and see how their immunity is and get vaccinated if they did get the ineffective version back in the 60s. So yeah, there's quirkiness happening that we're trying to communicate out. The Lewis and Clark Public Health website now has a whole page on measles. Frequently asked questions, all of this information about vaccines, lots of information about vaccines because the more information the better. There's information about what's in the vaccine. I think there's some people really concerned about the ingredients. And so those are listed on our website so that you can see what the ingredients are. The effectiveness of the vaccine, it's 97% effective. So we are very protected when we have our MMR.
And I'll just add that, we're always looking in public health at what might be happening next as we're working on the current problem that's going on. And the mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine, measles is extremely, extremely contagious. So if it's in the air and you're not vaccinated or don't have immunity, the chances are you're going to get it. The rubella, or what was called German measles, for the most part, doesn't cause too much problems. In fact, for many men, it was But the problem with that one is it's incredibly teratogenic to the unborn baby. And that's why not only that we get women vaccinated against it, but considering women sometimes hang out with us men, it was important to get us too. And it concerns me with the number of things going down. Are we going to start to see some other problems, our mumps and stuff of that sort? But the fact is, for some of these things, it can be way down the line that we see it. And so it's so important to get and stay ahead of this and look at what defenses we have to prevent the event from ever happening in the first place as we prepare for the events that are happening and could happen.
One thing I just want to add too, for folks who are interested in incredible people in public health history. So Montana's been blessed with some amazing public health kind of like, I guess I call them warriors. But one is related to vaccines. The gentleman's name is Maurice Hilleman. He grew up in Miles City, and he developed how many different multiple vaccines through his career. Yeah.
He was involved. He was involved with the measles, and the mumps story is the one that's probably the most notorious for him. He did the flu, he did many of the vaccines. But the antigen in the mumps one is called the Geraldine antigen, which is named after his daughter. Sadly, his wife had passed away. He was a single dad. His daughter came to him in the middle of the night feeling sick, and he noticed right away it was mumps. And so he swabbed her throat and went to the laboratory. Hopefully he took care of her too. But went to the laboratory, and it's still that antigen that's used, the Geraldine antigen that was done for it. And actually, there's a iconic picture of her little sister getting the shot and her holding the hand of her for the mumps vaccine.
Remember Dr. Cruzado talking about Mr. Hillman and the scholarships at MSU? We got a couple of minutes left. Is there a comment or a question? Yeah.
I just had a comment. I'm going to take over. Sorry. Kelly Fortune once again with KTVH and KXLH. I wanted to just say I really enjoy coming here because you get a little piece of information that you didn't know about Helena or the community. And I recognize that this is kind of a small representation of Helena, but we're here to find out more and then get the word out to the rest of the people. But working at the TV station, we could match dollar for dollar with any nonprofit to help anybody get this information out to the public a little bit more than just here. So I just wanted to mention that that's something that we have to offer in case anybody is interested in taking advantage of it.
Wow, thank you, Kelly. Oh. Yeah. It's a learning opportunity every Thursday morning. Danny. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for all the work you've done. My father lived at the ripe old age of 53 years old, which was 3 years over average for a Native American back then. And with the work you've done, my life expectancy is only supposed to be 17 years less than the national average for Native Americans. And we've been under this threat of dying off early for a long time. 90% of Native Americans died within 100 years of Columbus coming to Turtle Island, which seems tragic. But 500 years before that, when the Scandinavians made it to to Turtle Island, the die-off rate was about 99%. So when you wonder what happened to the mound builders of the Midwest, or the cliff dwellers of the Southeast, or all the way down into South America, what happened to those people was more likely related to them early diseases that we had no means to be cured from. The first traders that come up in the 1830s on the Missouri River brought with them smallpox. It was about a 50 or 60% die-off rate for the Blackfeet. So when you look at these things in history, I hear these things all the time. People say, here's a teepee ring. That's where these Indians came and camped year after year after year after year. We never did that. You camped someplace for a season, there wasn't any game left. There wasn't feed for your animals and stuff like that. So you chose another spot. But if an epidemic happened, we spread out all over the country. We seen it on the Salish and the Blackfoot Reservation when they had to close their reservation to non-natives because everybody went out and camped in the mountains because it was safer. But after 20 years, you go back and the only thing nature will have is a circle of rocks because everything else has disappeared. And we weren't foolish enough to leave our rocks laying around where you trip over them in the tall grass. You stack all the rocks together so you could find them when you came back to that area. So those are signs of an epidemic. They're not signs of we were out camping and having a gay old time. So we need to work on these things all the time. Personally, I was trying to put in a smudge room at St. Peter's Hospital. We had all the conditions and the tools and the filtration systems they needed to put in that room. And Ebola came to the United States, and they had to use that to make a quarantine room in that hospital in case somebody was infected and they could put them in. You know, so it's strange you never think of something like that that could affect something you work so hard at and delay it for a while. So thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you. Ben's got his long pants on, so winter might not be gone all the way.
I got to meet with the tribal council in Great Falls in a couple hours.
Oh, that explains it. Okay. Well, 8:01, the hour goes quick. I guess we better knock off. Todd, Craig, we're among friends. No need for titles. Thank you very, very